Howdy, howdy. Welcome back. It's another Workshop Wednesday. This time, our category is What's New, because it's the first Wednesday of the month, the first workshop of the month, and we're going to cover the updates and features that Google released in February of 2021. Before we go too far into this, my name is Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You should as well. So all my friends do. We're friends now. I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io. And whether you found us through some of the podcasts or some of the talks that we've given, always interested in doing podcasts, by the way. So if you've got a group and a podcast, just head over to measurementmarketing.io. You'll see a place where we can connect. Maybe you found us through some of the content that we share with platforms like CXL Institute or Digital Marketer, Social Media Examiner, maybe even Measure Summit, or maybe you're already a member, whether a Toolbox member or a Measurement Marketing Academy member over at measurementmarketing.io. However you found us, welcome aboard. It's our job to help people like you figure out how to use all these fun, fancy tools. And in this workshop, we're going to help you get caught up on all of the cool changes that have come our way in the last 30 days. Now, we always hit the measurement marketing framework, so you can hopefully say it with me if you're a fan of Workshop Wednesday. First, we start with planning, which is all about the questions we're asking, the information we need to collect in order to get the answers, and most importantly, the actions we're going to take based upon those answers. Then build out. We're using Tag Manager and Google Analytics. Then reporting, where Data Studio starts kicking into gear. Ultimately, you start to forecast based upon your benchmarks, and ultimately after that, you measure against the forecasts. And that's what will tell you where to optimize and what's working, what's not. Okay, so with all of these workshops, we want to focus on one new thing, one new idea is all we're really trying to get. So for this, just take a look at some of these, right? Some of these things are going to be super useful for you. Some of them are just be like, it's good to know. Take action on the one that is new that you can actually do something with. And that's how we build skills. All right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? What's new? Updates and features released in February 2021. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in as we cover the highlights. Now, I'm going to start with Tag Manager. Now, there hasn't been a massive update to the client side of Tag Manager, the ones that we're all using most of the time. However, I did want to point out one thing that is really useful. I'm going to go into the search gallery here. This is for custom templates, right? When we look for the gallery. One, always make sure you're checking custom templates because there's always cool new stuff back here. But two, and this is the biggest thing, our buddy Simo Ahava is kind of the tag manager guru of gurus. Learned a ton from him and continue to. So Simo has created these, initially he created these Facebook pixels that were templates for the Facebook pixel, which everybody should be using. You should no longer be doing custom HTML pixels with Facebook anymore. That's just the old school way of doing stuff now. Now you should be using these custom templates. The exciting news is that this went from Simo and everybody managing it in the community to Facebook managing it, which is pretty cool. So that's why it says Facebook Incubator here. So it's a very tiny change. There's actually no functional difference at all other than the fact that Facebook is now managing the Tag Manager templates. This is huge. This is massive. Facebook and Google finally playing nicely. Are you kidding me? That's fantastic. So Facebook is managing this and this customer chat one. And then this new kid on the block popped up. So there's a whole new one for those interested in Convergence API. Remember, I wouldn't focus so much on using API stuff on the client version of Tag Manager because you want to make sure your keys are not being publicly available to the world. That's why we don't use Tag Manager for direct API stuff. However, this stuff, the regular templates, the pixels, no big deal. And this is kind of the cool thing, is from what we've been told, Facebook is working on templates that will also be available for server-side Tag Manager. Now remember, right now they're not. Server-side, still a little technical, still a little complicated. It's in its early infancy, so if you're not using it yet, that's okay. Eventually you probably will. It might be a while, but eventually you want to look toward that. The reason that you will eventually start using it is because two things will happen. One is it'll get easier. Two, there'll be templates available. And right now there's not a ton of those out there, but there will be. And when you got companies like Facebook that are interested in making server-side templates, that's really cool. So again, nothing to show you there yet because it doesn't exist yet, but from what I hear, it's on the way. So maybe as the year goes on, we might see that. But the really exciting thing is that the Facebook template itself is now being handled by Facebook. Like that's a huge vote for Tag Manager. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And again, just make sure that you're using the template if you're not already, because it's fantastic. All right. Next up, so much for Tag Manager changes. Let's move on to Google Analytics. In this case, Google Analytics 4. Now remember, Universal Analytics, the kind of the older version of Analytics, the one I still use today, hopefully you're still using today because Universal Analytics is still the most useful. Google Analytics 4, though, is really getting all the development love. It's getting all the new features, it's getting all the adjustments, but it's constantly changing because it is a new platform. So every month, we're going to go through the updates that have changed. There have been a number of different ones here. I'm going to start with right down here at the bottom where it says custom dimensions. I'm on the lower left-hand corner here. See custom definitions, I should say. Now, these used to be called user properties. And this is the stuff that you should expect from Google Analytics 4 because it is a new platform. So they're going to come out with something that they thought would work, but it didn't work. So they change it back because everybody went like, well, what's user property? And I use custom definitions and custom dimensions and custom metrics in Universal Analytics. Where is all that in Google Analytics 4? And nobody could really connect the dots. So now you start to see those things come through here. So under custom definitions, you now see, guess what? Custom dimensions and custom metrics. These have always been there. It's kind of a name change more than anything else. And that they are highlighting them slightly differently. So there's a metric, there's the dimension, right? So you've always had these. You can see here, when these were called user properties, we actually created a few so we could see some stuff playing around back in the day. This is when this platform first was sort of publicly renamed and re-released. We had done these, but these were called user properties back there. So if you have user properties already set up, they are now going to be called custom dimensions, and you'll see them back here. But from here, you can kind of manage everything, which is what I do like that. Instead of having to go back in the admin section and like you do with Universal Analytics and set everything up, you can do it from the kind of more the front end of Google Analytics 4. So come into custom definitions. If you want to create a new custom dimension, you can do that up here. Just create everything. You can scope it out, either event. So it's kind of, think of this as the hit type scope of the older platform, right? Hit scope. And then user scope, so you can do whatever the scope is there. Also, you can look at the quota information. I think this is going to be useful because guess what? There is a quota. So event scope, we have 50 different events that we can do that are event scope. We have 25 different dimensions that are user scoped. And under metrics, you've got 50 event scoped ones for specific metrics. So those are the current quotas. Doesn't mean these aren't going to change in the future. That's what they are right now, but it's a lot more than what was existing with Universal Analytics. So that's great. And this is a really quick, easy way for you to keep track of how many you're actually creating from here. So just know this. This was probably the biggest change that came through in Google Analytics 4. And again, it's just an example of how the platform is continuing to change and adjust. It's pretty major. I mean, they're changing report names back here. Like it's a big deal. So this is why I'm not using this platform on a daily basis from a production standpoint yet to actually get my answers. But what I like about this is, I'm learning this platform and I'm learning where all the bells and whistles are and how to connect the dots and create my own dimensions and metrics and sort of replicate what I'm already doing with Universal Analytics, as you should as well. But the cool part about this is when you see things like this is where Google is listening to everybody testing it and everybody asking questions and they're paying attention to the message boards and they're doing their research. So keep using this platform and keep letting people know kind of, what's working, what's not for you. And as Google adjusts it, it becomes more and more useful. And again, I fully expect probably by 2022 that this will be the primary analytics platform that most people are using on a fairly regular basis. And Universal will start to go on the wayside quite a bit, I would imagine, in 2022. So we have 2021, the year of 2021, to really understand to use this platform, probably a good chunk of 2022 as well. And then toward maybe the end of 2022, early 2023 is where Universal starts to really go away and GA4 takes over. That's kind of a rough timeline, but look for stuff like this. Play around with stuff like this. Get used to Google Analytics 4 for sure. Now I wanted to show you one other thing, and this was something because I think either this wasn't quite published, we didn't know this was a change at the time, or to be honest, a little secret between you and I, just don't tell anybody. I might have missed this, and I want to make sure that I cover this. So in the Cohort Reports, so they have Cohort Reports that are available in the analysis section. So one of the things they started doing with Cohort Reports, and these are great reports. We use these for like retention and acquisition stuff and churn reports and everything else and lifetime value. They can be used for a lot of cool things. Now, we typically will use a spreadsheet to do this sort of work. But one of the things that I'm really liking that Google Analytics 4, that GA4 did, was this calculation here. So what's kind of nice about this, now remember, this is only as useful as the quality of your data, and that's a little harder to stitch together, but with time, effort, and energy, as everybody learns this platform, the data quality gets better and better and better. this is one of the things I thought was promising. They added this little calculation here where you can change how these blocks are calculated. So you can kind of do the standard, like of this group. A cohort report is just a group report and measures a group over time. So in this first group, the people that came here, this is how many of those 634, 48 of those 634 were here, and then 20 of those were here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you've got rolling, where it says, it's kind of the group prior. So it's 634 of the 48, and then 14, in this case, were active users of this group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Kind of how it goes. Or sorry, excuse me, I should say of this original group is how it goes. Then they have cumulative, which is adding them up as they go through. So how many of the group was actually active over time, right? And it sort of accumulates. So this would be a perfect thing for like LTV, that sort of stuff. So it's kind of interesting how they are building out the analysis reports so that there's going to be some real muscle back here. And this is what's exciting. Again, I'm not using this on a daily basis. I use spreadsheets for now. They do the job, and I'm not changing anything radically for our organization at this point because that's not broken and we're getting the answers we need, so I don't need to change it. However, this is a good sign. When I start to see all these analysis reports coming through here and them adding additional stuff, giving them some more muscle, I do start to go, I wonder what we could do with GA4. And it's another reason to make sure that you've got the fun stuff of GA4 already figured out, right? And when I mean the fun stuff, I mean, how do you get events in there? How do you make sure your users are tracking? How do you get your e-commerce in there? How do you make sure your traffic sources are involved? How do you get your events and conversions? Do all of that basic stuff now. Take the time to do that because there's some cool stuff coming down. These are only the February changes, right? We're recording this on March 3rd, 2021. So these are just the early first couple of months of 2021 with the updates that have come through now for GA4. We still have an entire year and a half left as this platform really evolves and becomes immensely more useful. So get ahead of it if you haven't already. Okay, next up, let's talk about Data Studio. Now, Data Studio has actually done quite a bit in terms of updates. They were a little in January, there wasn't so much, but in February they picked it up a little bit. Some of it's more back-end stuff. They made sharing data sources a little easier. People that could collaborate on data sources, you can do a little more than you used to. So that probably doesn't affect too many people. If anything, it just seems like it's easier to get stuff done and you don't run into permission errors anymore. Like that probably was the biggest thing that you may have noticed on that aspect. But the one of the bigger deals that they came up with was this idea of navigation. So when you navigate, you can do the left pane, right? And maybe you can hide stuff. You may have noticed that. Where that happens here is under navigation type, but they added a couple more. So now you can do left, which is what I really like doing because I like seeing all the pages on the left, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So if we do left here, and this is our demo dashboard, by the way. So in one of the other videos, I had a comment that was like, oh, is there a place we can see these dashboards, make a copy of it? Absolutely. You can go to, if you are a Toolbox member, you've got access to the Toolbox member. That's a free membership site. In the Toolbox, one of the tools, in fact, let me just show you now that I think about it. One of the tools that's in the Toolbox, again, this is the free stuff that we give out just to help support the community. So anything that's in here is you've got access to. So in the Toolbox, if you scroll down to Dashboard Toolkit right in there, that's where you will see links to get the dashboard planner. We've got the example dashboard, Data Studio dashboard you can use. And this particular one is going through a massive update, but it'll be here. So whatever that link is in the members area will take you to the newest demo dashboard. So you can get it, especially for some new reports like the Eyes on the Journey report, things like that. So you can really kind of get an understanding of how they work. However, with all of that said, I'm really trying to demonstrate, look, left pane, like that's how you get everything to the left. Well, they've added a couple of others, which may or may not be useful to you. Now, if I come over here to navigation pane, you will now see there's tab and drop down and hidden. Now, hidden means there is nothing. It just kind of goes away. Tab, watch what this does. So tab will actually, instead of going left, goes across the top, which is much better for a lot of people. It doesn't take up as much of the space on the left-hand side. And so this might be something that you might want to take a look at, right? Putting this up here. I thought this was a really cool thing to do. Now, we have done tabs already. We sort of do them in a slightly different way with a little bit of graphics, right? So we like doing tabs like this that we create. That is not a navigation thing. That was just sort of a cool little Data Studio hack we did with images and hyperlinking different pages together. So it looks really nice. However, this does take just a little bit of time to put together. So if you like the idea of having tabs going across, look at this. They just automatically added them here, and that might just do it for you. That's perfect. So know that that's an ability as well. And then finally, the other way is just the drop down. That was the other one. So tab and drop down were the two that were noted. Drop down is this, right? Where it comes up here and it's the old style. So that was kind of the original style is all it is. So really, I should say the biggest one that was added was tabbed, I guess, because drop down has been there before. So that's how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this back so that our team doesn't get upset with me that I'm changing all of our reports. So there we go. This is how we had it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it. No, I won't. I wanted to do it tabbed, but I know that they've created a lot of stuff and I really shouldn't be back here messing with it. So I'm going to keep it like this so that my team doesn't yell at me later. But again, bigger change in terms of navigation for Data Studio. Other things that came out for Data Studio. One, date ranges. If you've ever connected to Google Sheets and it hasn't quite been the format or something that it was expecting, you ran into generic errors. Now the errors will be more like, hey, I'm having a problem trying to read the date. Here's some things you might want to fix it. So error handling with date ranges has been a little easier to deal with, which has been good. And then the only other thing that may or may not be useful to you, and I'm going to do my best let's come into Data Studio. I'm going to go and I'm going to try to there we go. I created workshop example report exactly for this reason, just to mess stuff up. So if I come into edit and we go into, let's do a time series. There we go. Is a time series. So we have a little time series chart that's down here, right? So what has happened is you can now use, you can do numbers to push these through, coming through here. So if you specifically decimal points and compact numbers. So instead of putting the entire number through, which I guess evidently back in the day, you had to do that with time series. Let me get rid of this here. I'm going to take out some of these bits and pieces. We'll bring this in so you can at least see it a little bit easier. So we have a little time series going across. Okay. So then, so again, with the time series charts, the way that they had it is you could put in the different points of time through here, right? The different values. My guess, and I haven't done this for a little bit, so it should be in style. And then we can go, there's show points, right? Which identifies the points. And then there's the data labels for those points right in here. So we can see that. Right here where it says compact numbers and auto. These are the points that are new here. So I can say, oh, like in this case, it's hundreds. It's probably not going to be that big of a deal. If it was thousands or something like that, if I did compact, it would say K, right? Like 2000K or 2.5K. The other thing is if I wanted decimals, right? I can say, oh, everything's got to have 2 decimal places, or in this case, 3 decimal places. So you can adjust these data points. So this part here, when you show data labels, is the new part of time series. Might not matter for some of you, might be amazing for others if you need to define that stuff. So just know that you now can do that, and it might make that a little bit more useful for you, that particular chart widget. Otherwise, for me, I really like the tabs. That was my one thing. I'm like, yeah, I get to do tabs. In fact, that's what I am going to do because this is my play one. I'm definitely going to do that. So I'm going to click back to the main page, go to layout here. We go to navigation type, and I go to tab. And that's going to make all of my little things tabs right there. So I'll start using that from now on. I think it's kind of a cool feature. All right. So with that, which one of those was your one thing for the updates that you can actually take some advantage on? What was your favorite one that came through? Think about it. And if you haven't used Data Studio at all, seriously consider Data Studio. Next week's Workshop Wednesday will be a getting started section. So if you've ever kind of been like, well, I've seen this thing, I want to learn it, looks like it's some cool stuff, we're going to get you some getting started topic on how to create your first Data Studio report, most likely with Google Analytics as a data source. So we'll show you how to sort of connect the dots and get some basic stuff up and running from your analytics into Data Studio Report. It's going to be a free workshop. It's coming out next week. Remember, if you want that, subscribe and you will get it. That's all it needs to be. It'll announce that you can get it. The other way to get that is by becoming a Workshop Wednesday Toolbox member. This measurement marketing toolbox that we have, you get Workshop Wednesday, you get all these other traffic tracking toolkits. You will see if I go back into our members area here, if I click on demand workshops, in this little section, you will see the most recent workshop will actually pop up. So this is what we do each week. We'll put in the Workshop Wednesday. It shows up here in the top. As I give that a second to load, I'm broadcasting quite a bit, so I'm sure it's taking some of the bandwidth away from my my normal stack. But we've got, the workshop itself will show in there, as well as some of the old past workshops that you may or may not have access to depending upon your level. So we have a free level that gives you access to the toolbox and to the recent Workshop Wednesday. Then we've got the Academy level that levels up everything and gives you access to the community, to Ask Instructor Support, to the Win courses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's the on-demand workshop. In fact, the one that we're actually doing right now. So you have that. Now, the other thing, let me go ahead and click out of this. So we'll bring this out here. The other aspect is, of course, if you want the free toolbox membership, measure.tip/WW. If you have not yet become an Academy member, look at that. Consider that for sure. Measure.tip/getacademy. So in the Academy section itself, if I can get back into here. So this is what the dashboard looks like. Again, it's fully lit up. So you got access to everything. You have obviously all the toolbox, but to be fair, you get this for free if you just become a toolbox member. So I want to make sure you know that those are there. The stuff that you get as an Academy member are the courses. So you get all these little Win courses that are here. You can see all the different ones that we have back there for a variety of topics. They are updated fairly regularly. You can see this one was updated in February 2021. This one was updated in January 2021. So we do update these courses. And you see they cover different topics. There's Google Analytics from setup to basics to Google Analytics 4 if you want to learn about GA4. We also have Tag Manager, right? The basics of Tag Manager, a little bit more advanced beyond basic stuff. How to set it up for retargeting, right? Even a little JavaScript for those that really want to get into it. So you got lots of stuff with Tag Manager. For dashboards, look at all the courses for dashboards. So how to track funnels, how to use Data Studio for the basics of it, the little more advanced stuff, tracking traffic attribution, knowing which numbers are important to measure, how to measure for retention, churn, stick, things like that. So you have all those back here. And then strategy courses. So, how do you actually plan something out? How do you actually optimize? What do you do with all these numbers that you get, right? How do you actually forecast revenue and results? That sort of stuff. So we see these back here as well. And for those of Shopify stores, it's some slightly differences with Shopify. So we created a course just for you back there on that. So there's lots of cool things that are back here. That's just the courses of the Academy, just that. The other thing is this on-demand workshops completely opens up. Now, on-demand workshops, of course, has Workshop Wednesday. Now, you get this one for free anyway, being a Toolbox member. But as a Measurement Marketing Academy member, you unlock all of these. And so you start to get all of the past workshops that are back there. Now, these are different from the YouTube editions because they've been fully edited. They've got all this stuff all the stuff where I'm talking right now about all the sort of things about the membership site, that's obviously all edited out. And it's got different effects in there to make it a little easier to get through. They're a lot more focused. And so you can go through here, you can search the database, you can see everything back here. So this is all in addition to the courses, right? Very specific things that we show you. So you have that. It's a massive amount of information. And remember, the Academy is not one of those places you come in and watch all the videos because it's just way too many for you to watch. But they have just about every video you're ever going to need. It's a whole just-in-time learning platform for you based upon wherever you are in your own measurement journey. Now, you have access to the community as well. So you've got the Winner Circle community where you can ask others for some help, but there's also Ask Instructor Support. Now, this is one of our most popular features. The Ask Instructor Support is literally created because we know what it's like on your side of the table, right? We've learned these tools and we watch somebody do a video and you're like, well, that didn't work at all the way they did it. I wonder what's going on and they can't figure it out. Or you find some really old video or something that doesn't quite do what it does anymore. I mean, stuff like that happens, right? So when you need help, and you will, we count on you needing this, go to Ask Instructor Support. You click on the Ask a Question button, and then you pop in whatever your question is, and then send us over, a little description, including screenshots and videos. We love seeing screenshots and videos. We really encourage screenshots and videos. Think about it like having a consultant on call. And we get all sorts of questions from, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to get this goal to work in Google Analytics, or I'm trying to get this tag to fire in Tag Manager, or I'm not even sure what I should measure on my site. Here's what my site looks like. What would you do, right? Or here's my dashboard. I'm not even sure if it's a good looking dashboard. What would I do with this? Like anything from analytics, Tag Manager, strategy, Data Studio, and everything in between. Anything measurement marketing related, ask instructors. We are back here. We do this all the time. We teach hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different students. We've taught probably, at least 100 different business models that have been out there. We've seen just about everything. So take advantage of the experience that the instructors give you back here, the Ask Instructor Support. And if you're already an Academy member, this is here. Definitely use this feature. Like ask us questions back here. That's why it is here. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. So again, measure.tip/getacademy if you're not already an Academy member, and we look forward to seeing you back there soon, especially in the Ask Instructor Support section. With that, we'll go ahead and bring it officially to a close. This has been What's New? Updates and features released in February 2021. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.